had this cool thought, right? How many times do you interact with people and you're sitting with your ideas, you're sitting with what it is you want to say, you're literally ready to tell them, like, hey, this great idea, or your turn to speak in the conversation, and you're patiently waiting for your turn. And then the next thing you know, what comes out of it is, instead of it coming together in the conversation going okay, somebody gets their feelings hurt. Somehow there's a resentment, butt hurt, angry, a discontent. And that ends up adding like that little tiny little discontent, whether it was with a family member, your spouse, a significant other, one of your besties. You didn't get to get your 2 cents in, or finish your thought, or be able to communicate the way you wanted to communicate. And so then time has moved on, but in that day, that's held on to you. So I want to take back to, you're in that conversation and you really want to be able to say something. And things are like, you're jiving back and forth, I like purple because of this, and I like red because of this, and have you thought of this or that? What if, when it all comes down to the end, maybe you didn't get to get your 10 cents involved in the conversation. Maybe you got bypassed because somebody else joined the conversation, or it went completely different, like, squirrel. But what if we brought it back? And I want to focus on the simple word, perhaps. Now, perhaps doesn't sound like a big deal, but let's say perhaps that other person needed that attention. Perhaps that other person had something else going on that they just weren't comfortable talking about. Perhaps that other person was feeling, who knows, but needed you to pay attention, needed you to recognize them, needed to take over your space so that they could feel validated or important, or needed to move the conversation in a way that didn't make you feel terribly good, but there was so much going on with them that's what was something that was needed. And for you, you're able to go back and say, instead of wanting to take them out or all this other stuff, perhaps they have a lot going on. Perhaps it's not worth all of your time and energy to be caught up with in that missing part, that part that created the resentment or that restlessness or that discontent in the conversation for you. So that perhaps you have this turn, a pause, and out of that comes a little bit of a fresh air. And instead of it being that little pebble adding to the mounds of pebbles that create those mountains, because I don't know about you, but you put a mountain in front of me, I'm going to find my way up or down the mountain. But you put a ton of pebbles in front of me and I'm going to trip. I'm going to trip all the way. I hope you're following what I'm saying. I don't fall over the mountain, I fall over the pebbles long before I even get to the mountain. The big stuff, it's coming at me, I can process. It's all these little ones. Boom, 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 and I'm down. I'm down. It's a broken ankle, the knee, the hip, whatever. I'm laid out. I'm stumbling over the small stuff. We've heard this before. That little rock that was in your shoe and you go for the run and you don't bother to get it out. At the end of that run, you've got this horrible sore on your foot and you're not running for the rest of the week. Versus you could have stopped and emptied out this tiny little pebble and life would have been easy. Now, if it was a mountain in front of you or something big, a big chunk, big rock or something, you'd have instantly stopped because it would have been too overwhelming. take this analogy and bring it back to perhaps. Perhaps it's not as big as I think it is. Perhaps it's not as small as I think it is. Perhaps it's not just about me. Maybe it's about me looking at them. Or maybe it's about me looking at me and seeing what it is that I'm missing or needing. Maybe perhaps could do so many different parts, like we've already talked about in this little quick talk, of how it could be them, it could be me, it could be a we. But perhaps I'm not spending enough time really looking at me. Me in the sense of if I'm checking in, are my needs getting met out of whatever this relationship is? Am I communicating clearly so that people understand, or am I too caught up in the fears of what others are thinking? Wow, perhaps just opened up doorways. And I want to take perhaps a little bit deeper, and we're going to go more into this area. I'm working on a project with a team, and it's called What Remains. R-E, and then the state of Maine, M-A-I-N-E, and then an S. And what remains? What remains? Perhaps what remains is all these little pebbles in different conversations, in different relationships that add up to a minefield. And then I get to an age like I'm in my mid-50s, and what remains are these unanswered questions. Was I too nice here? And I was a doormat, and I didn't have good boundaries, and now here, excommunicated. Here I stood up for myself, and now nobody wants anybody that stands up for themselves because I don't play along. Or another what remains. I didn't get to. Instead of I get to, I didn't take I get to. I took I didn't get to. I didn't get to because of those fears, because of my interpretation of feelings, and be able to have communications, be able to express myself, be able to be clear. Here's an example. I did lots of things for family members, and I tried to position it in a way that it would all work out and look good and come together. And in doing so, it also fell undermining because I was the one doing it. And so it looks like I did this big, horrible thing. But the times, right? There was COVID and people were sick and things were really crazy. And so I was able to do certain things, but then when you look at it on paper, it looks like it was all me, even though it was utilized for others as well. And so the explanation and the facts get removed, and somebody jumps on their own thoughts and feelings and runs with it, and then it really does a lot of damage. And instead of having communication, instead of having serious conversation, they build it up because of all these tiny little, remember we tripping over the stones. They have too many stones in their shoes, and it takes them out, and then it's a takeout. And there was no pause. There was no perhaps. There was what remains. And in what remains, how do you sit with it? Thanks for joining.